Thank you, everyone. Good to be with everyone this afternoon and welcome you to this webinar for the Stirling and Clackmannanshire Employability Framework. We've had that introduction from Fran from the other speakers today as well, so I'll just move on to the next slide, which provides some background, and hopefully that second slide is with you now. So some background round about this approach. This joint employability framework between Stirling and Clackmannanshire is a year in existence, which is quite exciting for us. We've recently reopened the framework just at the start of December to new tenders, so we thought it was quite helpful to be having this session and providing people with a further opportunity to join us and work in partnership with us. But working jointly between Stirling and Clacks isn't a new thing for us across the areas. We've got 7 years experience of working together in relation to the delivery of Fair Start Scotland. We've done lots of work, as some of you will be aware, around the joint Stirling and Clackmannanshire City Region deal, particularly around skills and inclusion developments. We've done joint work in relation to employer engagement activity, and also some joint work around employment incentives with local employers. So quite a rich history there in relation to the joint work that we've been delivering across the two areas. The joint employability framework, though, is based very much around levels of funding that we get from Scottish Government and UK Government. So currently, in relation to Scottish Government and No One Left Behind funds that we access on behalf of the two respective partnerships, we are waiting on confirmation from Scottish Government about what the level of award will be for the two partnership areas, which fund lots of the local employability delivery. In relation to UK Government, you know, for the last few years we've had access to UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That is coming to an end after a transitional year that we've just been having. We're waiting currently on some feedback from UK Government around about what level of funds may come from a new growth fund, which will replace the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and we're hopeful that we'll get some indication of some potential for that in the next month or so. So those are the two kind of areas that are key to funding this framework and providing the range of opportunities that we can then put out to yourselves to work in partnership with us. But lots of this work is underpinned by a particular focus around No One Left Behind and the Scottish Government's strategic plan for that for 24 to 27. And you know, what the government aims to do through that and through joint work with ourselves is about improving continually the access to the employability system, increasing awareness of the opportunities and uptake of employability support locally, tackling child poverty by increasing parental income from employment, supporting disabled people and those with long-term health conditions, delivering jointly with wider public services, working with employers to improve outcomes, and supporting a just transition to net zero. And in doing all that under those strategic priorities, the aim is to support the creation of a labour market that is fair, inclusive, and provides sustainable and well-paid jobs. It enables equal access to an increased range of opportunities whilst challenging bias, structural and personal barriers. Also aiming to help people into fair and sustainable jobs to deliver inclusive growth, tackle child poverty and support better health. And lastly, by providing person-centred support to people who wish to work but face a number of barriers to do so. In relation to that, there are a number of principles that underpin the No One Left Behind strategic plan. Those are services that provide flexible and person-centred support. It's about establishing an employability provision that's straightforward for people to navigate. It's about supporting provision that's also integrated and aligned with other services that are happening locally. Providing pathways into sustainable and fair work, but also providing services locally that are driven by evidence, including data and the experience of service users. And lastly, one that supports more people to move into the right job for them at the right time. So lots of principles and outcomes underpinning lots of the work that we're doing. What you'll find with this framework opportunity is that our opportunities are linked to the 5 stages of the strategic skills pathway. I say pathway now because Scottish Government have recently been undertaking work to move away from the terminology pipeline and encourage us all to look at using the strategic skills pathway. We'll talk a little bit more about the 3 lot areas at the minute, because that will detail the kind of 3 key areas that we would invite tenders from you for. But crucially, we are looking to have a mixed economy of delivery opportunities. So that would be inclusive of public, private and third sector delivery, really enhancing the range of opportunities that are out there for local people. And in doing so, we aim to increase the reach and range of the provision that's available locally, and provision that also matches local need. 2 of our key areas that we're focusing on, one around tackling child poverty and supporting as many parents as we possibly can into work to alleviate poverty experience in the family home. And the second key area, and some renewed focus from Scottish Government recently, around the support of specialist employability support, supported employment services, looking to close the disability employment gap. So the next slide looks at the particular lot areas. So as I said before, we are kind of split across 3 different lot areas. Lot 1 is looking at engagement and barrier removal, and that would cover stages 1 and 2 of the employability pathway. Lot 2 looking at covering vocational training and work-related skills. So that will cover stages 3 and 4 of the employability pathway. And lastly, Lot 3 looking at the provision of in-work support and work-based training, that covering stage 5 of the employability pathway. Moving now to some specific priorities, and for us in Stirling, these are the key priorities that we are really looking for providers to support us with in relation to wider delivery. So we do have an ongoing increasing demand for services that support the employability needs of young people with additional support needs. We have an ask and some support requests around the provision of in-work support in terms of the stage 5 employability pathway. We're looking for provision that supports and increases the range of volunteering experiences in the workplace, either in the workplace or actually in community settings, which offer people the opportunity to develop their skills in confidence and gain new experiences in supportive contexts. We're also looking to increase the range of support that's out there for those who are experiencing long-term unemployment. And we're looking at targeted provision for those who are engaged currently in the community justice system. As alluded to in the previous slide, parental employability support is key for us, so we're looking to continually increase the reach and range of opportunities around about that. And lastly, looking at how we increase the opportunities attached to specialist employability support and opportunities, for example, around supported employment developments and things like that. So I'm going to pass over to Stacey now, who's going to take us through some of the Clackmannanshire priorities.
Thanks, Ed. Afternoon, everybody. So for Clackmannanshire, we have a few key priority groups and areas of focus within our employability work. Firstly, it's young people. We want to make sure young people, including those with additional support needs, can access the right type of support at the right time. So a big part of this is our sector-based skills academies, which give young people hands-on experience and clearer pathways into jobs. These Academies also let us work closely with employers, so the training really matches what they need. We also support adults aged 16 to 67 who have a disability. This is part of the specialist employability support. That it's specialist person-centred and designed to remove barriers and help people move forward towards sustainable employment at a pace that suits them. Another priority is the economically inactive residents. So that's our pre-employability support and engagement. For many people in this group, confidence building and early engagement are crucial. So we focus on pre-employability support to help them re-enter training or work step by step. We also support parents from priority family groups. So our parental employability support is a big priority for us as well. So this includes lone parents, young parents, families with very young children or 3 or more children, parents with disabilities, and from minority ethnic backgrounds. So it's quite important that these provisions are tailored, which can make a real difference. Not mentioned on the slide, but we are looking ahead at how employability programmes can link to wider community plans. So a good example is the new Clackmannanshire Wellbeing Hub. So we're exploring what training and preparation we can offer the public and local people so that they are ready to step into roles when the hub opens, and making sure that the opportunities stay within the community. So overall, the aim across all areas is to provide person-centred support that's flexible and progresses towards long-term sustainable employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey, and thank you, Ed. My name is James Crawford, and I'm the Procurement Officer commissioning the framework on behalf of Clackmannanshire and Stirling Councils. Today, I'm going to talk you through what a framework is and the application process itself, and give you some hints and tips. So the first distinction that I think is quite important to make is what a framework is and also what it's not. So a framework is essentially a pool of approved suppliers. It's an approved supplier list. And the contracts or the work which come through the framework will be after you've joined. So your application here today is to join the approved supplier list. Being a member on a framework, it doesn't guarantee that you'll get any work through the framework, but likewise, it also doesn't, there's no commitments or obligations on your part to undertake any work. As Ed mentioned, this is a reopening of the framework. It's a flexible framework, so at various points throughout its cycle, which ends in 2029, we may be reopening up to new applicants. As I mentioned, that once you're a member on the framework and you get secure work through the framework, this is known as a call-off. I'll talk a wee bit more at the end about what a call-off is, but in the meantime, Ed will move on to it and we'll have a wee look at the application process. So on this slide, we're going to talk about the application to join the framework to become approved supplier. A crucial bit of information is that it must be through Public Contracts Scotland. If you're not already a member, I believe it is fairly straightforward and it's free to join, and you should be able to find the notice. If you have a difficulty finding the notice, my contact details should be there. You should be able to pop me a wee email and I will be able to locate it for you. The application documents you'll see here, there's 3 parts. There's the SPD, there's the invitation to tender, and there's the various appendices. These are all the documents which you will see on the contract notice. The ones which are in bold are the ones that will require you to fill something out and submit it as part of your application. The ones not in bold are simply for reference. So the SPD is all your company's background checks. If a member of staff who knows your organisation inside out, it's mostly yes or no's, and someone like that should be able to do it within a couple of minutes. Most of it's yes, no's, and that type of thing. The only thing which I believe will require narrative or text is you are required to demonstrate 2 examples of previous employability related work that you've delivered in a similar setting. But apart from that, it should be fairly straightforward yes and no's. Your invitation to tender is simply your guide to how a tender process works for Stirling and Clackmannanshire Council. Worthwhile to have a read of it. The one caveat I would say is that because this was drafted when the framework initially went live, some of the dates alluded to might be from last year, but that's immaterial for now. And with regards to the appendices, A is just your terms and conditions for reference. B is your agreement forms. That will just simply require a signature. There is no Appendix C, so there's no need to be concerned that it will be notably omitted from your list. Section or Appendix D is your specification, which outlines what each lot means in great detail, and that will be important for reasons I'll come on to in just a wee second. E is your pricing schedule. And while there is a pricing element, it carries 0% score for your framework score, but it is still enforceable. There's instructions within the document about what we're asking you to price on. And we also received other questions when we tendered last time, which should be on the PCS notice. So have a wee read at them, but don't be too overly concerned about how to answer it. There should be plenty of guidance. And Appendix F is your method statements. And you'll see I've got a wee ×3 there. That's because if you're applying for more than one lot at this stage, you will submit one set of method statements per lot. That is the only document which you will require to fill out separate ones per lot. In other words, if you're applying for 2, we don't need 2 SPDs or 2 agreement forms or 2 pricing schedules. It's just the method statement. So if we move on to the next slide, I'll go into more detail on the method statement appendix. So as I mentioned before, you will see there is 3 separate sets of method statements. You will only answer the method statements for the lot you're applying for. In other words, if you've already been awarded in the first cycle to one of the lots, you're obviously only going to be filling out the method statements for the lot that you're applying for this cycle. We would ask bidders to use the templates while it's not strictly forbidden to use additional information or separate tables. We did find it made the evaluation process a wee bit more complex when we had to look at stuff that was out with the template. So if possible, please keep the template already provided. We've got 9 method statements, and the purpose of the method statement is to describe how you will enact something. So while it's very easy to be drawn in just describing what experience you have, it's important to make sure it's written in a forward-thinking way rather than simply dwelling on experience. Although, of course, it's natural that the work that you're going to be doing will align with work that you've already done. So it will link into previous experience, but if you can just remember to keep it more forward-thinking. Now, when you look and you see there's 9 method statements, it might look like that is an enormous amount of work. But the purpose of this, because this is just to get you onto the framework, we wanted to make sure that all bases were covered. In other words, when it comes to the next stage, when you're actually bidding for competitive processes, it'll be a much simpler process, but I'll describe that in just a wee second. So just to make sure you're not concerned by the fact that there's numerous method statements to fill out. And one wee bit of advice is that if you're applying for multiple method statements, it will be up to you to decide whether or not for some of the method statements, if there's any need to have different responses for the different lots. The only one I would say it's critical that you do a bespoke answer if you're applying for more than one lot would be your program delivery, because that ties to the lot you're applying for. But your risk management or your contract management may not differ from lot to lot. So if it ends up being a copied and paste response, that's perfectly okay. And the scoring is against the criteria. We're not restricting numbers, so there's no need to be, we want as many people on the framework as possible. So we're not scoring you against each other. It's just strictly against the criteria there. We just need to make sure that you can demonstrate your ability to enact each one of those method statements. And Ed, if we want to move on. So some of the common questions that we had last time is, the first one is when you look at the specification, you'll see that for each lot, there's loads and loads of description about what comes under that lot. A question we were asked last time is, do you need to be able to fulfill everything mentioned in that lot in the specification to apply for it? And the answer is no. The purpose of the specification having vast amounts of information is just so that we can list all applicable themes, so that if you've got a niche or a narrow sphere of work, as long as you can fit it in somehow to that lot, you're more than welcome to apply for it. Another question we got asked was, will the framework be ranked? And the framework will not be ranked. So when we do our call-offs and we invite bidders to bid, the framework scoring at this stage will have no bearing on the call-off outcomes. I mentioned before about pricing. Pricing is a trickier one at this stage. We are obliged to request that you provide an indicative maximum cost for delivering a service. There's more instruction in the appendix about what we mean by that. But as I said before, don't be overtly concerned with it. But if you do have any questions, please do ask on the PCS question and answer box portal. And the last wee bit of guidance is to do with terms and conditions. Some businesses request amendments to the terms and conditions, which you are welcome to do. It's just a wee heads up that this can take a considerable amount of time to travel through our internal governance. That's not to deter in any way from asking for amendments, but it's just a wee heads up that those who request them, it may take longer to get them awarded. Thank you, Ed. So the timeframes for the framework, as Ed mentioned, the framework is already live on Public Contracts Scotland, so you should be able to search for it. The question and answer box will be open until Wednesday, the 7th of January. I believe it's midday on each of these dates, which is something to keep a wee eye out for. And the closing date for applications will be Friday, the 16th of January. So quite a wee while away, but of course, many of you will be closing down for the Christmas, so that may not be quite as far away as it seems. And we'd be hoping to have new awards made by March 2026. And generally, the funding aligns to the new year. So shortly thereafter, we'd expect to have some call-off competitions that you could be invited to. And if you see the date on the Public Contracts Scotland, they will be gospel. In other words, anything that you see in this presentation or in any of the documents, if they are different from the ones on the contract notice, it's the dates on the contract notice which shall take precedence. So I mentioned before that the framework is just to become a member of the approved supplier list, and work is secured through call-off contracts. So I'll just quickly describe the call-off contract process, bearing in mind that this doesn't pertain to your framework application at all. This is what happens after you're a member on the framework. This is what will it look like. There are two ways in which we award through the framework: a mini competition or a direct award. A direct award is where we don't undertake a competitive process and we award to a particular supplier for, it could be for a number of reasons. The main way in which we will award through the framework is through a mini competition. And the process for a mini competition, it will start with the service area at Clackmannanshire or Stirling Council. they will identify their requirement or characterize their requirement as either a Lot 1, Lot 2, or Lot 3 requirement. Every supplier on that particular lot will be sent a capability and capacity inquiry. So even if your submission to the framework, you've got quite a bespoke or niche area of that lot, it doesn't matter what the requirement is on that lot. If it's a requirement for that lot, everyone has the opportunity to respond to the capability and capacity inquiry. This is simply an expression of interest form. It will have high-level information, and you can indicate whether you want to be considered to compete for that contract. And if you say yes, you will then be sent the fuller, more detailed specification where you will submit a submission statement and a quote. So where I mentioned that the method statements for applying for the framework, there was various method statements. That was just so at the framework stage, we could make sure that we knew your health and safety processes, your risk management process were already robust so that we don't need to ask them again. So when it comes to this call-off stage, all you need to do is say how you're going to deliver this requirement and for what price. And we're hoping that, especially for smaller businesses where tendering can be quite a resource burden, this process is very straightforward once you're a member of the framework. We've had about 20, between both councils, we've had about 20 mini competitions over the last year. They don't exactly run in perfect patterns, so it's not easy to say when and where they'll arise. But for this year, they've been mainly Lot 1 and 2, and we've had roughly 20 awards, and we've had a large variation in the companies that we've awarded to, which has been good to see. And I think, Ed, if we move on. And the last thing to say is that if you require any assistance when filling out, there's some great resources on the SDP website. And as I mentioned before, there is a question and answer box on PCS. Just remember to make sure your questions are anonymous and you don't disclose any commercially sensitive information. And be mindful that the opportunity to ask questions will close about a week before the application window will close in itself. And I think that is all from me.
Perfect. Let's just stop.